All right, so we're going to pick up again today on motivation. Okay, and now we're going to start into these set of theories that are more performance driven. Okay, before we kind of talked about the overall arching theories, these are more now the aspect of process. Okay, so we talked about a couple weeks ago about goal setting, right? Everybody remember that we talked about goal setting and how important that was. Do you think that factors into motivation? If you set a goal, does that make you motivated? For the most part. Not necessarily, okay? But it could be, right? Sometimes it can make you motivated, right? If you're internally driven. From an external perspective, goal setting, probably not. But I can tell you, most companies now base their annual performance review on this methodology of motivation, which is really goal setting. Now, because I can't tell you the number of companies I've worked for in the last 10 years where everything you do about your performance is you set your goals to begin with, and how you're going to get paid again is going to depend on how you actually did up in meeting those goals. Okay, so this is a current theory, very current theory for what on this process of understanding where it's at. Okay, I really like this figure. It is in the book, which you can kind of see where it talks about how this is how motivation actually works. Okay, so when it comes to goal setting. Now, if you look at the top part of this, we've talked about all these, right? Okay, so here, this is actually where you set that goal, right? So here, this is specific. We talked about this when we talk about goals, right? This aspect of SMART, of a SMART goal, right? So a SMART goal what is it? What is a SMART goal? What's it stand for? S-M-A-R-T. Okay. Will that refresh the memories a little bit? Specific, measurable, applicable, relevant, and time sensitive. Okay. So those are all. That's the first part of that is obviously specific, but typically you can replace that with a SMART goal. Okay. Because if you're looking at this, your goal should actually be, if you're doing this for an evaluation period, what's your time frame in it? What you want to get accomplished in the year, right? To get that raise. Because that's basically how this works these days, is that most HR systems, you're going to set your own goals. And if you don't meet them, they're going to look at you in the face and go, you don't get a raise. Plain and simple. I mean, and that's because the onus is all on you. Okay? So this actual aspect of goal setting is putting it on you. Obviously, if you're using this for a performance part, you've accepted those goals, right? Because you actually came up with it in a performance review. So that aspect of being accepted. Now, if somebody gives you a goal for the year, your sales manager gives you a goal for the week. And you don't think that it's realistic. Do you agree with it? Would you accept that goal? If you were in sales, the sales manager comes up and says you're going to do $3,000 in sales today. You're selling shoes, okay? Hopefully, do you think that's an achievable goal? Or what happens if you don't think it's achievable? What would you do? What's that? You can make a new goal, or you can just disregard that one, which means you haven't accepted it. So typically, if you don't accept that goal, you're not very motivated to get to that goal, right? So at that point, if he turns around and says, you're going to do $5,000 in sales, and you're going, there's no way I'm going to do $5,000 in sales today. Are you very motivated to do $5,000 in sales? No, because you didn't agree with that being acceptable, or you didn't accept that goal, okay? Now, this next aspect of being motivating, from a motivation perspective, from being goals, is challenging. Now, if you're trying to challenge yourself and your goal turns out to be you're already running 3 miles a day, and your goal today was to run 2.5. Is that challenging? Not if you're already running 3, right? Okay. So where is that ability to move yourself forward, right? There's not really a whole lot of motivation. You can do that really easy. So how motivated are you to do that? Probably kicking back and relaxing and just, that's not really what you call a goal. It's not reaching. Goals are something you're supposed to be reaching for. Okay. And then this aspect of feedback. In the case of HR, that feedback occurs every year. Okay? That means that in the HR process, okay, you're going to get at the end of the year what they call a self-evaluation. So, and in that self-evaluation, that process is at the end of the year, they're going to go ahead and turn around and say, hey, okay, how well did you do? Did you meet these goals? How did you meet those goals? Okay? Think about those aspects of that in providing that feedback. If you're more motivated to meet those goals, what's the feedback going to be? Probably not going to get a raise. Okay? So when you bundle all of these things, this process together, and it's a process, you're going to see that you have the optic of actually having motivation. Because the whole theory behind this in HR is that you're going to set a series of goals for yourself for the year. You're going to then, because you've accepted those goals because you created them, okay? And then, usually as part of that creation process, they're going to need to be approved by your supervisor, okay? Which means that they're going to kind of make sure they're challenging enough for you. And then at the end of the year, you're going to see whether you meet them or not, okay? And typically how well you meet them or how well you don't meet them is going to be how well you're going to get paid for the next year, okay? It will dictate whether you get a raise or not. I can say probably better than 85% of the companies use this methodology for annual performance reviews now, okay? Will you get some feedback? You'll get feedback probably through that process as well from your supervisor, but you're going to fill out a self-evaluation first, and you will get some supervisor feedback as well. But I can tell you that Tao, guys, it's the same system that they use here. It's the same system that I've used in several of the last, probably in the last 10 years, 12 years, probably. Almost every company has had some kind of system along those lines for motivation, okay? And it's part of that motivation process. Okay, another process that we're going to look at is equity theory. So in business, when we talk about equity, what do we mean? Anybody here had accounting in? Even in general business, you guys should have at least talked about equity. What's equity? When we talk about company, if we're talking about a company, what's equity? Could be money, yeah, absolutely. Could be value of shares, okay? So any hard equivalency of a sense of worth is what you call the general term of equity. Okay, in business, we always refer to it as shares of stock in a company, or money assets that they have, or real property. Okay, property assets, real assets, things like buildings and vehicles and those types of things. All of those play into that sense of equity. But from a motivational standpoint, it's a sense of worth. So under equity theory, if a person is going to turn around, and we all do this, you're going to evaluate your self-worth, right? Okay? If you're on a team, Do you evaluate your self-worth towards your team, towards your teammates? Okay. Do you take a look and see, am I better or worse than somebody else? Okay. I pretty much say almost everybody does. It's human nature. Whether you're in business, so you're evaluating this sense of self-worth. What happens if you think somebody, what would you think would happen if suddenly you seem to be doing more work, but the guy next to you is getting paid more? What do you think that's going to do to your sense of equity? It's going to decrease it? Huh? Increase it? It's definitely going to decrease it, right? You're not going to be worth as much. No way you're going to be worth, you're going, well, wait a minute. Why am I getting paid this amount? Okay. And he's making more and he's not putting out as much. He's not producing as much as I am. Okay. Where's that sense of worth? Okay. Under this theory, the sense of worth is constantly evaluated by all of us. Okay. And it's something that really, truly happens. So what happens when you get that perception? That you're making less money than the guy next to you now, but what do you think is going to happen? Okay, yeah, probably going to change the effort, right? What else do you think would happen? How about this one? Change the outcome or output. Okay. In the case of the manufacturing example, it's the same thing. If you reduce your effort, you're going to reduce your output. But if you're in customer service, okay, the outcome or output is going to be different than it would be your effort, right? So your effort would be, okay, you pick up that phone and you're dealing with somebody on the other end of the line, and what do you think if somebody else is getting paid more that's sitting next to you, what's your effort going to be in solving that person's problem? Probably a lot less, right? Because that's where effort would play into it there. Now the outcome in customer service would be how many calls. You could still handle the same number of calls, okay, if you weren't happy, but you could actually not really care about what's going on that other end of that phone or about solving the problem, right? So this is where those two would differ. Okay, in the manufacturing sense, they're about the same. The next one would be change your perception. Okay, and about the sense of self-worth, this is where we as leaders and managers can come in, right? Because if you're truly, when you get somebody who's really disenfranchised like this, maybe they're perceiving that problem to be something that it's not, okay? Maybe, not always the case, but maybe that person is doing other responsibilities that you're not seeing, okay? This happens a lot when you become a supervisor, okay? Especially when you take that bump up that first time around, right? You get that first supervisor job and you're doing all these extra other responsibilities. Sometimes the people you worked with don't see that change, don't see those other things that you're doing. Okay, so as leaders, we can help change that perception as a possibility there. What's the last one? What's the last outcome? The one choice we always have. Okay. I've exercised that a couple of times in my career. Okay. Where I've chose to leave. Okay. For one reason or another. Okay. That you always, in that sense of equity. Okay. And if you get to that point where, this is what I used to tell, if you get to that point where you can't rectify that sense of equity, that sense of self-worth with them, then you need to leave. And there have been times where I've actually told people to actually leave, apply for the job 2 weeks later, and come back. Why would I do that? What? Take a stab at why I would tell somebody that. Because you could get, because we were paying more than what they were, because they were a returning employee, we were paying higher for people coming in than we were actually paying the people who were already there. Okay? Because when you start getting in business and you income adjust when you actually adjust that hiring wage, okay, sometimes the climate may now dictate that you have to add $1 or $1.50 to that. Okay, so that will create this sense of non-equity with the people who are already working there, because they're the person we just brought in, okay, was probably making another $1 an hour. And you say, what I would tell them is, leave, reapply for a job in 2 weeks. I can hire you back. Okay, and I'll have to hire you back at a different wage because that other wage is there. Because a lot of companies will not income adjust in those regards. They don't adjust current employees. They only adjust one for economic conditions. Most of the time, they adjust who's coming in. So you may have an employee that's been there 10 or 12 years, okay, and you're hiring somebody in the same position that maybe now is going to make more money than they do because of when they came in. Yeah, because in this case, when are you worth the most amount of money to the company? At the beginning, right? All your power is in the beginning. Okay, so making sure you get that right amount of salary to begin with and that right wage is important going in. Because after that, your negotiating power goes to almost nothing. Okay, and that's what happens with these people who've been in these companies 10 and 12 years, okay, or 15 years. The wages increase, and even if they're adjusting for cost of living increases every year, it's not going to be enough to what the market is bearing usually. So you're going to have a job change at some point in time because of that sense of equity. Okay, you're not getting that motivation anymore, right? Once you become that sense of self-worth becomes not applicable to you, then you're probably going to have to make a change. Okay. This next part of the process is probably these next two are probably going to be pretty easy because these are what we normally do. Expectancy theory. Okay. If you're working in a restaurant and they're running a contest, okay, to see who can sell the most bottles of wine at a table, okay, and there's a at the end, the winner of that contest at the end of the week gets $100 worth of gift certificates or something, okay. That's expectancy theory. Because what you do is if you sell the most bottles of wine, what are you expecting? $100 in gift certificates, okay? I mean, you know what you're going to get at the end. Same if you were a salesman, a car salesman, right? And your goal for the day or for your week was to sell 5 cars, okay? If you sold 5 cars, you make this much in bonus, okay? So that's expectancy theory, okay? You meet this particular criteria, you get this particular reward, okay? It's kind of what we used to, most of the time, if you were to, in any business, we would set goals, and at the end, there's a reward, okay? Still used a little bit around, it's probably not used as much, because what's the downfall of this? What happens if you don't make the reward? You know, all those effort, you sell 4 cars. What's that do to your motivation? Probably not going to be real great, right? You put in all this effort, you tried real hard, and you don't make those 5 cars. Yeah, you don't make that in goals, you're not going to be able to handle that. Okay. So the next, that one's pretty cut and dry. The next one is reinforcement. Reinforcement theory, another classical theory, okay? And you're really looking at two different aspects of this. The first one's going to be direct, okay? You're not quite doing things the way that they should be, so I'm going to turn around and give you some feedback, okay? I'm reinforcing that behavior that I want you to do, okay? That could be verbal, it could be written, it could be a number of ways. But basically, I'm trying to get you to basically into a point where I'm going to reinforce the behavior I want to see or reinforce the goals, okay? So that's really just direct feedback, okay? Direct reinforcement. I tell you something different, okay? The next one is a little bit more ambiguous. Okay? Social learning. I'm sure everybody in here's been on a team, right? On a group, okay, for a group project. Or you take a look at that as being, even as part of the teams you're on. What happens when somebody's not pulling their own weight? That would never happen, right? That would never happen, right? Everybody's going to do equal work and everybody's going to be happy. No, that's not going to happen. So what happens when that doesn't happen? Other than it makes you angry. Huh? He might be on the bench, right? Okay. If he's on, or in a group, all of a sudden he's finding himself not, that person's not. There's two things are going to happen in a group setting. Either you're going to push them out, okay, which then they should get the message, okay, or you're going to be really putting a lot of emphasis into them and pushing them in a different way. Hopefully that aspect is what they call social learning, okay? So whatever that is, if it turns out you're not putting the effort in on a team and they bench you, that usually sends a pretty strong message, right? Just like the one quarterback that was in Sunday's game. You have Trubinsky from Chicago. Okay, he pulls them halfway through the game. What kind of message does that send? He's not playing the way they want him to, right? So it's part of that, and I guarantee his team is pushing him. Once he gets pulled, he's definitely, that team's going to be pushing him to do better. Okay, not to mention the guy that replaced him. Okay, so that's this aspect of social learning reinforcement. Okay, so when you're part of that bigger group's going to come together and go, all right, you're not holding your weight. Okay, you're not doing what we need you to do. So in that type of reinforcement, the group kind of takes over and becomes that social learning aspect. Okay, you're going, maybe they didn't know what the group's expectations were. Okay, now maybe there's different ways that this learning can take place, but it's a way of motivating, right? Like the guy, like I said, that bench quarterback, I guarantee is going to be pushing a lot harder this week to try to get that job. Okay, he's going to be working harder to reinforce that. Okay, and his team's going to reinforce that behavior. So these are all kind of the newer ways of processing those types of things. All right, so we're going to got a case video that we're going to take a look at now, and we're going to discuss a couple of questions. As soon as I get to it. Okay. So we're gonna take a look at this video. Basically it's a gym, and they do actually a couple of these. Okay. And there's two questions we're going to take a look at. The first one, it's going to be, is he talks about establishing a work environment that motivates employees to do great work. So as you're looking through this, I want you guys to be looking for those ways they talk about to create this environment where they give this sense of empowerment, okay? This empowerment will also lead us to where we're going in our next and Friday's discussions, okay? The other question we're going to be looking at is the two trainers in this movie, and in this video, seem to be really satisfied with their jobs, okay? So where would you place them on Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we talked about on Monday, okay? So when the two trainers come up, take a look at what they're doing, and then we'll kind of split up here a little bit and discuss those two aspects of the questions.
I think my role as a motivator is utterly important, only because I'm trying to hire the right people. I think if I hire the right people, then I become much more maybe like a good conductor at a symphony than an overseer on a farm. I have people that I have to sort of scream and yell at. I need to get good people. My name is Michael Boyle, and I'm one of the owners and founders of Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning in Woburn, North Andover, and Haverhill, Massachusetts. Eventually, I think you do realize here there is sort of a burn rate or a churn rate. One of the things we try to do is we try to meet with our employees and find out what their goals are. And then I try really hard to help them achieve their goals. And the only goal I really don't want is a place next door to mine.
I think he keeps challenging us. Like he keeps on, look at this article. What do you guys think about this? And the fact that he's got so much experience in this field. I mean, we trust him because we're like, we know he's been there. He's done that. My name is Anna Taka. I'm a strength coach and personal trainer here at Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning. And I am the nutrition and wellness coordinator as well. And you try to live up to the expectations. So you just keep building on it, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest thing with any of them, and with somebody like Anna, is just giving them the opportunity to do what they do well. I mean, with her, if you just give her a steady stream of people, she's the natural people person. You'll watch her and you'll see it. I mean, she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. And I think when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't need a whole lot of motivation. You don't need me to facilitate because you're out there doing, and she's like me probably. She gets up every morning and never thinks, oh my God, I got to go to work. You get up and you think about the people that are going to be there and what you're going to do and how you're going to help them. And in a lot of ways, it takes care of itself.
I mean, I love what I do. I mean, I'll be 60 years old this year, and I don't have any plans of going anywhere. I really love what I do. I am Bob Hansen. I'm the co-founder of Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. The best thing for us is education. We constantly educate them. We send them to seminars. We have staff meetings every week. We keep them updated all the time with the latest stuff. We send them all over the country for seminars all the time. Education is probably the most important part.
They did a really huge study on what makes people like going to work. Of the top 8 things, one of them was not money. And they were things like, do I have a best friend at work? Do I have the tools that I need to do my job? Do I feel that the people at work care about me? And I pay attention to that list. One of the things we talked about, Bob and I, my partner, is that we need to meet with our employees more often because the only thing we weren't doing on the list that I felt well was meeting regularly with our employees. Everything else that was on that list, we were doing. So we were giving these people the environment where they would be happy going to work every day.
1, 2, 3, 4. Guys, make sure, okay? We get our arms straight all the way.
To be honest, I didn't know I wanted to be a trainer until I was in my junior year of college. I was always an athlete. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and I always loved working out, and I never really knew much about it. Like I knew, the basics, and I would go and I would work out. But then when I got into my undergrad, my junior year, my counselor was like, hey, you need an elective. And here's a book, pick an elective. And I'm flipping through it, and I was an econ major at the time, and oh my gosh, I go, strength and conditioning is a is a class? And he goes, yeah, it's actually a major. And so basically at that moment in time, everything stopped. I switched my major, and I interned here the following summer, and then I immediately knew, like, this is exactly where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And no going back since then. My name is Marco Sanchez. I'm a strength and conditioning coach and massage therapist at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. I have a lot of pride working here. I think that Mike has done a really good job of building a reputation for this gym and his staff and himself. I don't want to say like a stardom, but just in terms of the respect that we receive when we go into continuing education seminars and other places. People in the industry who know who Mike is, they find out that we work for Mike. They're very nice to us for the most part, and everybody kind of wants to know about what we're doing in this building, like what we do that separates us from everybody else. And so we definitely get a lot of people reaching out to us and looking for help, or just giving us some good respect. I definitely think that pride plays a big role in how the staff feels, working here.
Okay, so let's take a look at the questions at the end here, okay? So kind of what I want you guys to do is take a look at kind of the people are around you. Let's discuss these aspects of it, okay? First, what we talked about establishing a work environment. What are 3 specific ways that he motivates them and creates this environment that that really empowers his employees? So as we go through, so like maybe the 4 of you guys in the back, and you guys up front, a couple of you guys up front, and then maybe the 3 or 4 of you guys over there. And you guys, one group there, one group there, a couple of people up here. Okay, I want 3 solid ways that he describing how he actually created this environment. Okay, from watching that video. Okay, so go ahead and you guys can discuss that, and we'll talk a little bit about the last one. But the first question is, what did he do specifically to make this environment where these are people? I guarantee he doesn't have very many people leave. Okay, so how does he make that environment? How does he motivate those employees to stay? What are some of those things that he talked about and his business partner talked about in keeping those employees satisfied? All right, take a couple minutes, guys, and discuss between you. You guys can kind of divide around however you want to, jump around there a little bit. 4 minutes. All right, let's start with this group over here. Give me one mic. Okay.
He created stuff to help employees.
Okay. All right, hold that thought. Okay, back over here. What else? What do you guys get?
He gives them opportunity and space to work how they want to work.
What's that?
He gives them the opportunity and space to work how they want to work.
Okay. So I'm going to put that down as work ownership. So you give your employee the ownership of the position that they're to allow them to do the job they want to. So they own that job. Okay. Education and training. What else you guys come up with?
He came up with what was I forgot. That he came up with. Yeah, the program that fit employees.
Yeah. Which is part of meeting their individual goals, right? So he's providing them with an opportunity to meet their individual goals at the same time as meeting their, that they in turn will help the company's goals be met, right? Okay. You guys come up with it.
But I mean, basically,
Okay.
the stuff that I would like, that he believed that they doing like they work right. So
Okay.
that's kind of like work on.
No, actually, you're absolutely. I think this is where you were going with that. Is the ownership. Those two owners are active in the business, right? They're there all the time, which means that they believe in what they're doing, right? You can hear that. You can hear that passion when they talk about it, right? They are super passionate about what they're doing and how they're doing it. Okay, so they believe in the business, which is absolutely. If you have the owner working next to you, or working next to you in any business, how well does he? Don't you think that motivates you? Okay, you know, I can tell you from a practical experience, when I had on, it does two things. Okay, I can tell you I've had a couple of areas where, one situation where I was operating 3 buildings. Okay, and I walk over to one of the buildings where I had a manager who ran that building, and I looked and assessed the production for an event the next day, and I'm there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, dropping in, looking at and assessing to ensure that they're going to meet the production deadline. Turns out they weren't even close. Okay, so at that point, not only did I step in, but I also turned around and I pulled in some other resources from other buildings to assist, but I immediately stepped in, okay, and spent the next 6 hours producing probably 6 to 8 dishes for 300 people. Okay, it was one of these big events that was 1,200 people. So I'm sitting there. How do you think my team responded at that point? Do you think they picked up their pace? Okay. Do you think that they started looking at things a little bit different way? okay? And a lot of that, in that particular situation, the motivation at that point became a daunting task, okay? You know, this particular event, it's it was one of those events where it's what they call a celebrity dish. You're making, I think it was like 40 dishes for 1,000 or 1,200 people, okay? These 40 dishes are things that we don't normally do, okay? So this turned out to be a really daunting task for them, right? Because this is all, and these are all, from a planning perspective, it was a nightmare too, because they sent in all these household recipes that you have to scale and all that stuff, right? But the point being is when I stepped in at that point and then pulled a few more additional resources in over the next 6 hours, the team responded to that, okay? Then it became achievable. So that aspect of owners believing or leaders believing in the business was a huge motivational factor, okay? You guys come up with anything else? That was it? Okay. Yeah, pretty much these are definitely the big 5 of those. The other thing I would say here that's not on here is probably this aspect of culture, okay? That culture that they developed in there is that sense of, it's what ties all of this together, right? The aspect of, do you think if somebody was in there who approached that from a negative perspective, who got in there and was like, yeah, I'm just not digging this, okay? How quickly do you think, how long do you think they would last there? You're the last. Probably not long, right? And they would leave on their own accord because they're not happy. And there are going to be people in motivation that you can't make happy and that you can't motivate. I don't care who you are as a manager, okay, how great you are as a manager or leader, you're going to encounter people in your path that you are not going to be able to manage to motivate. It just, you know, no matter how much you know, there are those people out there that have a hard time being motivated. And it usually goes back to those people that we talked about that are motivated. What did he say was not in the top 8 motivators? Money, okay? People who are motivated by money alone are going to be some of the toughest ones as managers to be able to motivate. Why? Are they going to collect that money no matter how good of a job they are? They're going to collect an hourly wage? Yeah, right? It's what you agreed to, okay? And so no matter how hard they put things in, what are they going to get paid? The same amount, right? They become, when you're only motivated by money alone, it's very difficult to motivate that person, okay? So where do you think, the next question is, where do you guys think on this side, where do you guys think that those trainers fall on Maslow's theory, on Maslow's hierarchy? Yeah, we try, yeah, big pyramid. Think they're at the bottom, the basic needs? Okay. We get our pyramid back up here. Okay. So you guys stay down here, right? Okay, that's what you said, okay? What do you guys in the back say? What do you think? Where do you think you, those trainers fit in? The top. Okay. Okay. What do you guys say? What do you guys think? Where does he fall? Hang on a second. You want to say the middle? Okay, right here. You shouldn't be dissing him so badly because he's right. He's right. Actually, somewhere between, when I looked at this, he's going to be somewhere between the top 2 levels, self-esteem or self-actualization. Because when you hear them talk about it, okay, so why did you say that? Okay, exactly, right? They seem to be happy, okay, which definitely rules out the bottom 2 levels, right? Okay, obviously they have stable employment. Okay, they're working really well, they're happy. Okay, so that puts them pretty much above the first 3 levels. Okay, you know, into either the self-esteem level, okay, or the self-actualization. I'm leaning more towards the self-actualization, but you can make an argument for either of the top 2. Anyway, they're going to be in the top third of that pyramid. Okay, either way you want to look at it, because again, they're happy. They talked extremely, they're passionate about the job. They were probably almost as passionate in talking about their job and what they did as the 2 owners were, right? That's when you know you have an employee that's in that self-actualization stage. Okay, they know where they are. They know where, like the one guy said, the one trainer said, I didn't get into this until my junior year. I didn't even know it was an option until my junior year. He was an econ major, right? He switched over and found what he had in between, and then found a place that was going to allow him to grow and to actually become the person he wanted to be. That's that self-actualization. He knows where he wants to go. Okay? All right, guys, we'll catch up with motivation on Friday. Just make sure you guys, I notice everybody's starting to get their work in. That's a great thing. So remember the final open next week. So projects are due Monday. Monday, yes. Final projects are due Monday, yes. Yeah. We are reaching that point. 1 minute, yeah, right now. That would not be the case. Nice try. Nice try. I like that. One man's lobby, shorter paper, got it. Yes.